Hello, Nate. Oh, we've got you in three different. Look at this. We've got you in three different windows. What the heck is going on here? And I can't hear you.
I had my audio off.
What?
My internet just picked a wonderful time to go crap out on me, and
All right.
as I
Well,
was
folks,
trying to go live on everything, Facebook going? Is Facebook working?
Facebook is
can't tell.
working, but this is a new one on me.
All right.
You've done a complete new one on me. I don't know where this extra video is coming from. Let me see here how we're gonna do this.
Yeah, infinity. What's this bird?
Yeah.
Are you sure Facebook's working?
I'm
This is
I'm
good
looking on
content right
Facebook right now. Yeah. Hey, you guys.
Okay, I see it.
This is let's see here. There we go.
There it is.
Look
there it
at
is.
that. Look
Pretty
at
sure
that.
it's-
Well, once again,
pretty
folks,
sure
you get to
this
see
is
how the
good.
sausage is made. What happened is
So-
right as we were getting started, Nate's internet connection dropped.
So
and then
what happened was that I usually am hardwired to the internet at my house through this computer. And for whatever reason, it was on Wi-Fi. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? I'm going to just flip that back to the wired connection and not the Wi-Fi. Because usually when that happens, it just automatically syncs over and there's no problem at all. But of course, this one time I did it, everything just quit and had to reset all the stuff.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It's a thing. I apologize to everybody, but we're here. We're back. We're ready to talk.
We're
birds.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so welcome all you guys.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Hey everybody. Hello. We got a lot of people here on YouTube. So many hellos. It's gonna be hard to get to them all. Ari Davio from New York City. Dio Wikaroti from Maryland. Eric Yanyo from Pittsburgh. Chris from Ypsilanti. Julie from Sedona, Wellbirds, Jack from Atlanta, Georgia, Pat from Tennessee, Shelby from Houston, Texas, Mara from Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I think I got that right. Just emphasize whatever you want on those names.
Mia's
Carolyn
on
from
Facebook.
Austin,
Hi,
Scott.
Mia.
Hey, Mia. Ann from Anacortes, Washington. Mark from Orange County. Chris Ortega. He wants to know what those numbered crowns are next to certain commenters' names. That's a great question, Chris. I have no idea. I think it has to do with the number of people, how frequently they comment, but I'm not exactly sure. I could probably Google that, but
no, don't do
it's
anything.
Fans.
Just
It's
stay
top
here.
Fans.
Don't
I don't know
don't
how that's
change your
determined, but our
windows.
top fans. Mooney asks, "Is it normal to see juvenile robins in Wisconsin this time of year?" Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. They're probably on like their second or third brood by now.
Yeah.
Gilda from Blue Ridge, Georgia. David from Pittsburgh. Marcia from Ocean Pines, Maryland. Patty. There's a lot of people. It's a lot of
that's
people on
cool.
YouTube saying hello, and we love it. Thank you.
That's
Hello
good.
to
We
all
have-
of you.
we have-
Welcome to our frequently. One of these days, one of these weeks, we're gonna get it right, Greg, on the first try. XP
we
points, top
we get
fans.
it right on the
It's your
first try
life
all the
list,
time.
folks. That's what the crown is. It's your life list.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. We know it. We entered it into the system.
So very quickly,
one.
folks, what we do here is we pull pictures from our What's This Bird
Suck
groups.
on that, Peter Kasner.
From our What's This Bird groups, plural. And I pull some of those pictures and we discuss them here and try to keep them, meaningful to the season and what people are looking at right now. And what's going on? Mia says that they've still got robins building new nests in Arkansas.
I believe it.
Yeah, I mean,
believe it.
I bet they've been nesting
Folks,
since March.
going on a digression here in the comments about spotted robin babies. Yes, you can definitely see the thrush.
Absolutely.
The thrush relations and robins with the babies. They look like little wood thrushes sometimes.
They do.
They're that spotted.
Yeah. So you were saying just before we kind of went live here that
Or everything went to hell.
everything went to hell. That it's kind of cool by you, and
It has
you're
been
done with breeding
cold
bird
this week
surveys
and rainy. Yeah, it's been cold and rainy. We're in our kind of our false fall season. It's been
I'm envious.
downright chilly in the 60s. I'm wearing a sweater today, although I think today it's going to start picking up again. Yeah, we've got some we've got some stuff. We've got some birds moving, shorebirds coming through. People are reporting them. I'm going offshore next week
Right
with
on.
Brian out to the Gulf Stream, ostensibly with my son and a bunch of his friends to catch fish. But I'll be looking for some birds out there as well. Maybe touch base with some Wilson storm petrels. Fingers crossed. Masked booby,
There
which
you
has
go.
eluded me in North Carolina for a long time.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I
that's my
I
plans.
tagged a couple of his trips in the last 2-3 weeks for my fantasy birding game, and got
Hmm.
Scopoli, Shearwater, and
Hmm.
one of the other, not Sargasso, but one of the other infrequently seen birds out there. So yeah,
Trindade.
you'll
Maybe
probably
we can
get
get on
something
a
good.
number of Trindades. Yeah, I mean we're not going to be looking for birds, so we'll see how
Yeah,
many birds we bring in. We might drag some Medhaden blocks or some chum blocks and see what happens. But
yeah.
it's mostly a fishing trip. But the thing about being out there is there's so much cool stuff out there, not just birds, but also turtles and cool fish and cetaceans and yeah, you name it. There's a lot of neat things out on the blue water.
Matthew Radford is in the house and says that he's having some midday coffee and us two knuckleheads teaching him about birds.
Well,
Um,
I don't know if we're teaching anybody anything.
well, we're
Just
trying. You know,
we're trying. We're trying. We'll
so
teach you about
speaking of
internet
birds,
connections and whatnot.
August is a really cool month
Mm.
for birding, and you know, July and August, a lot of people, you know, they especially if they're newer to birding, they're like May and September. That's when you go birding, and that's that's when things are at
Good
their
birding in
peak.
May and September, generally,
It's fantastic, but
at least in the northern hemisphere.
August is when really exciting vagrants show up in a whole lot of the ABA area because you've got post breeding wandering of waders and southern birds like kites and limpkins and things like that are moving all over the place. You know, right now there's roseate spoonbills, wood storks,
Hmm.
swallow-tailed kites on the move. We've got like 3 swallow-tailed kites in Illinois and one in Indiana. I think one
Yeah.
in Michigan was seen this week. So swallow-tailed kites are on the move, and at the same time, you have shorebirds moving. So shorebirds,
The
when
adults.
they lay their eggs. As soon as the chicks hatch, the eggs hatch, and the chicks are moving around. Um, they they bug out,
Hmm.
and the adults bug out. And so this is a good time to find vagrant shorebirds.
It's stint
Things like
season.
it's stint season. One that gets really overlooked is sharp-tailed sandpiper,
Mm-hmm.
because the juveniles, the young birds, are pretty distinctive, but
Yeah,
adults in summer plumage, they're a little harder to pick out.
it can look
But
kind of ratty, as most
yeah,
birds do. There's a lot of body molt going on during southbound migration, especially with shorebirds.
yeah,
They can look rough and they can be difficult. But yeah, I mean this is the time of year, at least in the southeast, where the farmers are cutting the hay, and all
yeah,
the kites congregate in places where they're doing that, and eat the grasshoppers and locusts that they kick up.
yep,
So you can go down to the where North Carolina and South Carolina meet a lot of times, and get dozens of Mississippi kites and swallowtail kites kind of tooling around some of these places. It's post breeding dispersal season, so a lot of the wading birds that were hatched in just this summer are sort of wandering in various places. So it's
yep,
it's typical, even in places like the southeast where I live, where most of our wading birds are breeding towards the coast and rookeries. This is the time of year where you start seeing things like great egret and little blue heron, and sometimes tricolored heron and snowy egret on inland waterways, sometimes really well inland, because they're just young birds just wandering, and that's what they do this
yeah,
time of year. So it's a good time to get out there and start
and
looking for birds, because they are moving, even if it isn't always sort of the southbound passerine migration, which is still a few weeks
exactly.
away.
And that holds true across a whole lot of the ABA area. I mean, all the way from the northern
Mm-hmm.
Great Plains to Southern California and Arizona. Um, so yeah, and over in Facebook, as I mentioned, we got Matthew, we got Daphne and Rose, we got Christy. who's looking for scissor-tail flycatchers and swallow-tailed kites in Tennessee today.
Another good one to move around. That'll move.
We got Chucho Muyam in the house.
Hey,
and
Chucho.
Sarah Morrissey. What are the best places? Sarah asks, what are the best places near Chicago to see all of the shorebird activity? Well, there's a whole bunch of them, depending on what you consider the Chicago area. But I would get on the Illinois Discord and look at Cook, Lake, Will, and DuPage County sections and see where people are seeing shorebirds. But there are quite a few places out there.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it's really dependent on rainfall, at least where I am.
Is.
So we get so the back arms of reservoirs that can get really low and muddy if you go through a long few weeks where you don't get any rain. Of course, you get some years where you get a lot of rain and the mudflats get swamped up and the birds just kind of move on through. So a lot of that stuff is really dependent. It's year to year. It's not super consistent. But that's sort of what makes shorebirds interesting, is that if you've got a really good year, kind of a dry year in some of these places where the lake levels go down and expose those really tasty mudflats, you can get a lot of really interesting shorebirds, especially if they stay down for a really, really long time and they start to grow grass on some of the upper levels of the mudflats, and you'll get things, cool things like buff-breasted sandpiper or Baird's sandpiper to stop over birds that are sort of uncommon in those places.
And if you happen to have sod farms near where you live, check
Upland
the sod
sandpipers,
farms.
Buff-breasted sandpipers.
Sod farms after a heavy rain, boy, you can find almost anything out in the sod farms.
Yeah, we've got some really big ones out in eastern North Carolina on the way that are on the way out to the Outer Banks that I might try and stop by and just scope over real quick, because that's a really consistent place to get like upland sandpiper for the state, or in those sod farms.
Mark Kramer from Alaska checking in. So I think we've got to talk about birds now, meaning the birds that we have pictures of to look at.
Well,
but
not quite yet.
Quickly.
We got the one thing to do.
The one quick thing to do. Tell us about it.
American Birding Podcast, big guest this week, big get, Amy Tan, who wrote the Backyard Bird Chronicles. Amy Tan, somewhat famous novelist, who wrote, the Joy Luck Club and The Bonesitter's Daughter and a lot of other interesting books about the immigrant experience. Really, well known in the regular world in addition to the bird world. It's always nice when they create something that it fits so seamlessly into the bird canon, as Amy has done, and I talked with her about it. She is the so far the only American Birding Podcast guest that has been on The Simpsons. So that's something in her, her corner as well. Feather in her cap.
All right, we're going to go to Vermont for
Mark Kramer. Hey, Mark from Alaska. How you doing up there? Hope you've seen a lot of stuff.
For a big white thing in a pond.
Yeah, it is the season.
So this is the time of year, as we were just talking about, where herons and egrets and storks and all of those southern, more southern.
More southern.
Meaning that I don't think there's any. I don't think there really are any waders, herons, egrets that make it way up north.
No, the water freezes and they don't go up there. But they don't overwinter up there.
In any case, we got a big white bird with a long neck, long black legs. I don't know, kind of looks like a yellow bill.
Yeah, this is a great time of year to go out to your local reservoir, local wetlands, and try and look for these birds, because they are wandering around, especially young ones. And when you consider young birds, this is a big white wading bird with a long neck. I think we can safely put it in the heron/egret family. The difference between herons and egrets are pretty. It's linguistic and not taxonomic. They're all closely related. Generally called the big ones herons and the small ones egrets, except for
kind of like pigeon and dove.
Pigeon and dove, except for some real obvious examples for both of them. One of the issues with these birds is a lot of these young birds are very pale. So when we're thinking of all white ones, white even, when we're thinking of these young birds, you get things like great egret, snow egret, little blue heron, and reddish egret. I suppose we can throw in there, even though that's a very unlikely on what looks like a freshwater wetland in Vermont.
But you never know.
They tend not to be inland. They tend to be more saltwater, but they are white.
And they do wander.
They can wander.
We've had multiple reddish egrets in Illinois, and
white ones or red ones.
I think red ones in the spring.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
So
seems like the white ones are less common. Just
yeah,
generally.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at big white wading birds then.
Yeah, so the
And
things you definitely want to look at are legs and bill.
yeah,
Those are the clues. Legs and bill, because size can be difficult to determine. Although they do have a lot of they do vary in size.
well,
A bird that
and
is sitting by itself can be difficult to determine.
and
its size.
proportion.
Proportion.
You
Well,
know,
we always say that.
so our mystery bird is the little thumbnail there in the lower right hand corner. Um, and you know, let's start on the left side with the birds that we can kind of rule out immediately, and
Mm-hmm.
that would be wood stork, white ibis, and western cattle egret. Um, it's obviously not a wood stork.
Wood stork, big bald
Yeah,
head. Even the young birds
yeah,
have more feathers on their heads than the adults, but they still are pretty scraggly and vulturine
yeah,
looking. They're also massive, like just big, like not
yeah,
not gangly, not lankly, but like really solid, substantial birds. White ibis,
yeah.
bright red bill, bright red legs.
Pink,
Usually,
yeah, pink
not this
red
bird.
legs.
Long, very uniquely shaped bill. So definitely not that one. And yeah, one more there.
The western cattle egret.
I
That
forgot we
is
gotta call
it's a
them Western cattle egrets
it's a
now.
small yeah, it's a small bird. Really kind of approaching almost green heron in size, although not quite that
In
small.
proportion, for
But
certainly. Yeah, it
but
has a
in
green hairy
proportion,
shape.
it's kind of short necked and it kind of now these birds move around and can do just about anything, but they tend to be kind of hunched up
Hmm.
and look pissed off at the world the way that one in the lower left does. Um,
Yeah, the neck tends to be quite thick, and I don't think that
yeah,
it's any thicker than some of the larger birds, but it looks thicker because the bird
it
itself is so much smaller.
yeah, and
Yeah.
stockier. So then in the center, we've got the kind of middle-sized white egrets and herons. You know, we've got reddish
Hmm.
egret, little blue heron, and snowy egret. And you know, as Nate was saying, reddish egret is for the most part kind of habitat restricted. It likes salt marshes and
Pretty rare away from
mangroves and
saltwater.
things like that.
Yeah,
You know, I've seen a few like upriver on the Rio Grande, but
yeah, yeah.
usually they're in proximity to salt water. They also have dark legs, dark bill, dark lores. The lore being the space between the bill and the eye,
Hmm.
um, and it gives it kind of a unique look.
Yeah.
And the other thing about reddish egrets is, you know, on a still photograph like this, we can't really um, see what it's doing. But reddish egrets are weird. They do all kinds
Yeah,
of crazy antics. They dance around, they jump.
odd behavior. They
Um,
also look like kind of disheveled too. They look
yeah,
really shaggy and messed up, like they're on a bender or something compared to some of the
right.
other. They're very active feeders and very frizzy as far as
Yeah.
herons go.
You know,
Even in this late in the season.
right. Yeah, we you know, you think of some of the other egrets and herons, you know, like well, the other ones here on the screen, great blue, great egret, snowy egret, little blue
Hmm.
heron. You know, you think of these birds as very methodical stalkers. You know, they're standing
Hmm.
in the water, they're watching for something to move, and they stab out at it. Reddish egrets jump around and they
Yeah.
kick things up and they hold their wings open to kind of shade and see into the water a little bit. So yeah, when you see that, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah,
Look,
snowy egrets will do that a little bit too, but that's really
yeah,
very much a reddish egret behavior.
yeah.
Classically a reddish egret behavior.
Snowy egrets have a very cute way of feeding. Often is
Yeah.
they take those bright yellow feet and they stir up the mud with it, and they do these
Hmm.
little kind of a little foot shuffle to get things to come out of the mud. But
Yeah.
speaking of those two species, now those two can be pretty hard to tell apart when you've got a little blue heron, fresh juvenile plumage, and snowy egret.
For sure.
They're really
Yeah.
similar. They both have kind of yellowish, kind of greenish legs.
Yep.
They're about the same size.
Yep.
Uh, the snowy egret has a longer bill.
Hmm.
You can see it very well on the bird on the right, the adult bird there. It's got a very long dagger-like bill, whereas the little blue heron is more spike-like. It's shorter and thicker,
Yeah. Thicker.
and it's usually bicolored.
Usually. Yes.
Usually, the lore color is quite variable. So,
Yeah.
You know,
I,
typically, huh?
I was gonna say, like, I think young snowy egret is actually a kind of a difficult ID conundrum a lot of times, especially this
Yeah.
time of year. So speaking where I live, well inland in the southeast, we get a lot of young young little blue herons around this time of year. It's one of the more common kind of
Yeah.
white waders that we have, and every once in a while we get snowy egrets in here too. One or two a year, and picking that out from on a distant mud flat through the heat haze is actually kind of a difficult thing. And the
Oh, heck
behavior
yeah.
helps. Snowy egret does have a little more active feeding style. Little blue heron more methodical, as we've said. That's the sort of thing that might draw your attention to a certain bird that's on the other side of a mud flat, but it's never going to
Yeah.
be like the slam dunk identification clinching, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it is a sort of thing you look for to kind of find that bird initially, and then you put the scope on it, and then you'll spend a little more time trying to make it into a snowy egret.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the legs can be really similar. Snowy
They
egret
are.
tends
Yeah.
to be a bit brighter, but it's all a matter of degree, and you get some mud on those things, and all of a sudden they're looking
Exactly.
pretty dingy.
And they're
So
looking.
that could
Yeah.
be a tough ID. Yeah.
That can be. Now, if you've got birds flying over,
Hmm.
you'll notice that I've got a little blue heron there in flight, and you'll notice that the wing that's closest to us there has black smudging on the tips. That's not photo
Yeah.
artifact. That is that
Yeah.
charcoal gray smudging on the tips of the primaries is unique to little blue heron among our all white wading birds. And if you can see that, and again, if you get a flock going over, it's usually fairly apparent, especially
Yeah.
if you get photos of them. But that's something to look for.
Absolutely.
Then the other two are the big white guys. You got great egret, and in Florida, basically, you've got the white form of great blue heron.
Though I will
And
say that people are picking up that bird more frequently in the southeast. It's shown
yes,
up relatively inland. I think there's like some records for Tennessee, some
yeah,
records from Missouri. I'm surprised.
I think
Have you
there's
had
one.
it any in Illinois? It wouldn't
No, but I
surprise
think
me.
there's one for either Indiana or Michigan,
Yeah,
and another for Ohio.
yeah, yeah. They show up inland more than people recognize. I think
Yeah,
this time of year, but yeah, by and large, it's a pretty uncommon sort of thing. And if we're looking at the big white herons, the leg color is usually going to tell the story on those birds, even though they both have sort of bright yellow bills. The leg
yeah,
colors are different. And this is a great blue heron that is white instead of blue, gray, black, all the colors that it has. And great blue herons have greenish yellow legs, and
yeah.
great egrets have black legs, and that's a good way to tell.
It is. Well, that and the bill size.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, structure
The
as well.
great white heron has an even bigger bill than a great blue heron, and it looks like a boat,
Yeah,
like a kayak.
yeah,
Um,
it's a big bird
and it also has just bigger, thicker proportions in the way a great blue
it's a
heron
more
does.
substantial bird. Yeah.
If you get one out there among a bunch of great egrets, you will see it. You will notice it.
Yeah, it does look bigger.
So, looking at our little thumbnail in the lower right there with that long, snaky neck and the black legs, and being in Vermont, put all those things together, we got a great egret.
For sure. Yeah, great time of year. Great egret, not a common bird, probably not a breeding bird in Vermont. I couldn't tell you offhand, but I would guess that if it is, it's quite rare. But this time of year, they're going to push inland, they're going to push northwards, and you're going to see these birds in places that you don't necessarily expect.
Yeah. All right. Michigan. Tis,
Yeah, we folks talking about great white herons. There was one in Metro Atlanta that stayed for a few days. That's cool. I actually decided not to chase one a few years ago that was just not far from where I live, and I sort of regret that. I think that's a possible split down the road, but we'll see.
So this one comes from, I believe, north of Muskegon, Michigan. So that's
It's up there.
getting up into where the habitats start to change, and you go from what we think of as kind of more southern species versus the northern boreal forest birds. So you've got things like evening grosbeaks up in breeding up in that part of northern Michigan, or in, sorry, not northern Michigan, but in the north part of the mitten part of Michigan. Um, and you've got things like, geez, even blue grosbeaks getting up into not far south of there. So you see a bird like this, what, yeah, what do you do with it?
It's a tough one. So we're looking at a perching bird for sure. I think we can narrow it down. Medium-sized body, relatively shortish, or not an especially long tail, I should say. So
Yeah.
things like gnatcatcher, chickadee, titmice, all that stuff gets ruled out. Not a sparrow. Warblers and vireos are the two that you are most likely to see in this sort of posture. But
Yeah.
it's not a vireo because vireos have kind of a thick, straight, hooked bill. They've got a little bit of a hook at the tip of their bill, and this bird does not have that. So this is definitely a warbler, but it is
Yeah.
I would say this is a young bird, and
It looks to me like a young bird. And,
It looks ratty, it looks messy.
a couple of things, we can see that immediately rules out vireos, as Nate was saying, and flycatchers and anything else that might be that, is we see some very noticeable white in the tail in both shots.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of white in the tail. We're also getting, I think those white spots on the wings, those are ratty wing coverts. So this bird, I think, has wing bars. It's got a little bit of yellow on the chest, overall gray with kind of little eye arcs.
Yeah.
But
This
the
looks to me
bills-
like a bird that is molting out of juvenile plumage and into its first body plumage.
exactly
Whatever that's called, first alternate.
Yeah.
No, first
basic. Yeah.
First basic.
So yeah, let's take a look at what the little kind of gray, yellow, green things.
Chris T says Muskegon is right in the tension zone where the forests change. So that's sort of noteworthy. For
and this is I think just a little bit north of Muskegon, if I remember correctly.
Say northern part of the lower peninsula.
Yeah. So let's take a look at what this might be. And when I first saw this bird, I just looked at the face, and the first thing I thought was female or juvenile American redstart. But then the more I looked at it,
fair.
I'm like, boy, that really doesn't fit. And of course, you take 1 second to look at the tail, and that rules out redstart completely.
Yeah, they have a very distinctive tail pattern. As we know, it's a really unique looking warbler for that reason. Also, northern parula came to mind for me. I think when we were discussing this beforehand, that was a bird that the basic blocks of color on this bird do suggest northern parula. But the bill looks too big to me.
The bill is
awfully
definitely
thick.
too big.
Northern parula kind of uniquely has this little tiny bill, and it's also bicolored.
It's got
northern
yellow.
parula has it's got so the lower mandible is yellow on a parula, northern and tropical parula, but this is unlikely to be tropical parula, and dark on the top, and that's kind of a uniquely parula field mark that is in all plumages and is something you can kind of count on. Also, the tail, northern parula, very compact warbler, very short-tailed. This bird has a much too long tail for northern parula. So,
and and I like that. I like the whoever said the tension zone of that part of Michigan.
Yeah, we got to mix. We got to mix the stuff.
Because that's also where you could get a post-breeding wandering juvenile golden crowned kinglet, and we very rarely see them in What's This Bird, but when they do show up, they really confuse the heck out of people.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, it doesn't really look like anything you're familiar with. Now, if you're seeing the bird in life, kinglets are like reddish egrets. They're very distinctive in the way they move around, the way they flutter, the way they nervously kind of shake their wings all the time.
They're fast. And they're always
quick.
moving.
Yeah.
Even more than a parula, which is a pretty active for a warbler, but kinglets are even more so.
And Nate, as you like to point out every time we're talking about young birds, when the birds leave the nest, when they fledge, they have adult-like wings and tail. So that really helps in identifying a lot of the warblers and small passerines, that sparrows, things that, look alike. And you'll notice that the golden crown kinglet in the comp here, it's got that distinctive black wing bar at the base of the secondaries and into the primaries. That is kind of unique to kinglets, and a really good way to tell ruby crowned kinglet from Hutton's vireo if you're out west. Look for that wing bar, and if you don't see it, you probably have a vireo. So that kind of leaves us with the most confusing of the confusing warblers.
When in doubt,
go to pine warbler.
Yeah, we have people coming to that conclusion in both the YouTube and the Facebook comment section.
Len
says, when in doubt, it's always a pine warbler.
Len and I were saying the exact same thing. I wasn't even looking at that.
That was the words to live by. And Jim McDonald in the YouTube, all questionable thick-billed warblers in northern Michigan are pine warblers.
Yes.
So pine warbler is, not only is it extremely variable, especially these sort of first and second year birds, but they are thick-billed for warblers. They are the most vireo-like of warblers. We had a couple of people guessing vireo in the comments. They do have a vireo look. They act like vireos too. We think of vireos as being sort of slow-moving, lethargic, kind of moving through the trees, not like these flitty redstarts or parulas or any of the other warblers. Pine warblers are a bit more like that. They are methodical. They are slow. They are sluggish.
Yeah.
And they kind of are big too for warblers. They're one of the larger warblers, if I remember correctly. So they have that look. They have that thick bill. They have big feet. They have long tails. Like they look like a lot of different things. And so by process of elimination, which is not the best way to identify birds, but it's definitely leads you to a conclusion that you can verify with the field marks that you can see here, like the wing bars, like the pattern in the tail, like the yellow on the breast and the kind of eye arcs here. Those are all pine warbler things.
They are, and also as Nate was talking about how they're the most vireo-like of our warblers. In the southeast in the winter, if you think you've got a yellow-throated vireo, you don't. It's a pine warbler.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Because we see that one quite a lot. Hey, we got Carl Sorensen checking in from Sweden.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah. Really, Nate? Really?
I lived in Sweden for 6 months when I was in college.
Oh, all right, good.
I've forgotten most of my Swedish, honestly. And honestly, the thing about trying to learn Swedish in Sweden is that most Swedes speak like exceptional English, and none of them want to speak Swedish to you when they find out you're an English speaker. They all want to practice their English on your side. So,
and we've got Nanetta from Oklahoma.
Hey, Carl.
Just join in here. So now we're going to go to Ohio, and this is kind of another pine warbler like thing.
This is an interesting. Yeah, I mean, there are certain birds that you sort of go to when you don't know what to go to, or at least you can start from there. And a lot of times that's a good place to start because that's where you may end up too. But birds in flight. This is an interesting one. It's got kind of a shortish bill. It's got a lot of pattern on the breast there. It's got a dark tail, and I think that tail is sort of legit.
No, I think
legitimately
so too.
Dark. I don't think that's an artifact or anything, whatever. I'm trying to think of the term for when something looks dark when you're looking into the light. Backlit. It leads me one direction. It leads me to, I think pipits are worth considering. I think long spurs are worth considering in this bird. But the relatively short bill does sort of rule out some of our pipits, both of our pipits. They both are kind of lanky, long birds. Their bodies are not as chunky as this one. Like the weight of this body is sort of in the belly of this bird, whereas a lot of our pipits, the weight is sort of the widest part is sort of up towards the chest. So they kind of look like commas or even like bluebirds. Sort of have that look. It doesn't feel like a pipit to me, although I did consider it when I looked at this picture.
So, we can see a bit of the upper surface of the wing. It looks pretty plain. The bird is obviously looking at something as it's going over and giving us
maybe the photographer.
Maybe the photographer, but it seems to be looking up. Maybe there's a kestrel or something flying over.
Distant
but
red-winged hawk.
It gives us a good look at the face and the bill. And the things that really stand out to me is that the bill is neither, like you mentioned, long spurs, which really are not a possibility in
Kind of
Ohio
sparrowy bills.
in July.
In July, yeah, probably.
But they have,
although we have had like August vagrant longspurs sometimes there,
but I mean the bill is
hear
just
hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras.
Exactly. the bill is not thin like a pipit. Pipit has kind of a warbler like bill.
Very skinny bill. Yep.
And it's not thick and conical like a longspur or a sparrow or anything like that. It's kind of in the middle.
Body shape feels would not look like a sparrow to me either. Like the wings are too long and the tail is too short.
Yeah.
This is clearly an aerial bird with those long.
And the other thing that sticks out to me is the goofy looking eye and face. That kind of the way that the eye is just kind of in this white, it just kind of makes it look a little goofy. So let's take a look at what I think the possibilities are here.
Some of the birds that we've considered here.
Yeah, and I feel good that this is a juvenile horned lark. Which we see two examples of on the right.
For our European friends watching, it's the same bird as shore lark. What they call shore lark overseas. We call it horned lark. And Carl, if he said if I was in Europe, I would say skylark. Yeah, I mean larks have a very distinctive shape. They are kind of deep-bellied birds of open country with kind of not super long, thin bills, but not like sparrowy bunting bills either. They're kind of in between. And you can see what I was talking about with that photo with the American pipit there, the shape of the bird and the way the proportions are set the way they are, how the horned lark is sort of has a belly. It's thickest in the middle, whereas American pipit is sort of thickest right at the chest. And you can't tell that difference when that bird is flying. It makes it move differently in the air, and it's the sort of thing that you can pick up if you're looking for it.
Yeah, and the horned lark, a juvenile horned lark, is like the pine warbler of the open territory. They're confusing for a bunch of reasons. One, in a lot of the places where you're looking for things like Sprague's pipit, you will find these young horned larks that have all kinds of patterning on them and spots and streaks, birds. And they're messy. And the bill isn't, it's not longspur, it's not quite pipit, it's kind of in between. And they just confuse the hell out of everybody. And the other thing is, this is one of our earliest breeding birds in the ABA area, and I would imagine across the entire whole Arctic where they're found. And here in the Midwest, they will be fledging young in March. They'll be nesting when there's snow on the ground, and so you'll see these juvenile horned larks in April when you don't think of juvenile birds, and your brain just doesn't go there. So that's it can be a couple
things
really
that people have pointed
bird.
out that I wanted to mention here. Folks are noticing that that dark band that where the primaries and the secondaries come together on that open wing, how that part looks a lot darker than the rest.
Half a step ahead of me. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you're going to talk about that because people are asking what's up with that, and I am not sure that I know. My guess is that is molt limit. But I don't know for sure because I know that generally speaking, horned lark has a pretty clean underwing, at least in the flight feathers. But that's certainly interesting, and it's symmetrical, so you know that it's.
I think that those are
or something.
I think that's new feathers that are coming in. Those are some of the new inner primaries or outer secondaries. It's hard to tell. Well, we can count. Let's see. 10, 9, 8, 7,
right?
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So those are inner primaries.
The innermost primaries, yeah.
And it looks like those are new feathers that are just, those are the newest feathers on that bird. That's my guess.
Okay, yeah, that would be my suggestion. I mean, that would be that makes the most sense given that they are symmetrical on this bird, and birds tend to have symmetrical wing mold. And looking at the secondaries, on the left wing of the bird, the lower wing, there's some interesting patterns going on there. Like every other one is kind of frazzled and sticking out. it's just that looks like where to me.
Yeah, and like I said, horned larks nest early.
Yeah.
So this bird is probably going through its molt right now. I could jump on Birds of the
Do
World
they?
and see
I was
exactly
gonna
when
say.
they molt,
I was
but
gonna say, do they do? Are they one of those weird birds that does 2 flight feather molts a year?
I am not sure. And I should have looked that up before we started.
Yeah.
Um,
You can Google it.
but
I don't know if Google will.
get on. See, I'm not gonna do anything that might mess this up by opening a new browser window or anything. So I'm just gonna keep everything rolling right now. We got Pam Zika chiming in to say hi. So yeah, this bird is a juvenile horned lark. And one other thing, is when you see them flying, horned larks have black tails.
Yeah.
And you'll see the adult there that I have flying in the comp. Pipits the tail can look very dark. That's a really kind of an extreme example of an American pipit there. They usually don't appear that blackish, but horned larks have black tails. The very central tail feathers are kind of brown that lay on top, but the rest of it is black with white outer tail feathers. And when you're driving along a road and you see these birds fly up from the roadside, the horned larks really stand out because of the black tail. And it's a good way to tell larks from longspurs when you're going along country roads in the winter.
It's a good question for Pile. Go on my Pile guide. Anyway, Mara Berry says, saw horned larks flying all over a park on a very hot day in northwest Kansas last month. Yeah, I mean, horned lark, I always think of as sort of one of those level up birds, because once you start noticing them flying around, that's because they're one of the birds that is far more common than people think. They're in a lot of like open country across the continent, across the northern hemisphere, for that matter. And but you don't always see them because they are kind of mousy and they do like really dense stuff, and they don't spend a lot of time like out in the open where you might encounter them. They're usually tucked against the ground or flying over. And once you start picking up their flight calls, once you start noticing them, you'll start seeing or noticing horned larks in a lot of places that you wouldn't really expect.
Once you know what they sound like.
They've always been there. You just gotta. Yeah, so it's like you're leveling up your birding skills by noticing horned larks.
And in the spring they have they fly up and
overlap feathers. Could be too.
There could be a little bit of both going on there, but the way that it's symmetrical on both wings, it's the same feathers. That makes me think molt. North Carolina, we got more white birds with long necks and long legs.
A lot of those flying around these days. Post-breeding dispersal. It's a thing that's happening. I like these because this is sort of a very unique plumage, very unique look for a bird that we see a lot, especially towards the coast this time of year, all up and down the coast. This is also a bird that's having a little bit of a moment, moving in places where they don't always move.
Yes.
So some things to think about. Mostly white bird. It looks like it's got some black tips to the wings. Big long neck and long bill. It's got a short tail and the legs are sticking out beyond the bill. I want to point out that uppermost bird, the tail. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
The uppermost bird, the top bird in this photo, you can see the bill better here because its head might be turned a little bit.
Yep.
And it's got that very kind of long curved bill, which is unique to only a few birds on the continent. Curlews, being one, have a long down curved bill, and ibises. Ibises. Are there other kind of curved bills?
Well, there's storks. Wood stork has kind of a curved-ish bill.
It's very long legs that stick very young beyond the short tail.
We're gonna look at all the big white flying birds that we might see here.
Let's do it.
But these birds also have like black in the secondaries. Which is confusing to people. So let's take a look at what the big white flying birds that people might be seeing over the ABA area.
We rule out great egret, wood stork, and whooping crane right off the bat because the tails are relatively short. Yeah, I was gonna say you can't see the legs sticking out the back of the trumpeter swan, but the trumpeter swan is like our largest flying bird. That thing is like a 747 out there. It is massive. It's so big that it looks like it shouldn't even be able to fly. And these are not that.
But great
Right.
egret and trumpeter swan do not have black in the wingtips.
They do not.
Or in
That's
the
another
wings
thing.
at all.
At all,
They
at any
are
plumage.
white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, we're dealing with some birds that have dark, black in the wings. That leads us to wood stork, whooping crane, white ibis, American white pelican. And really just glancing at the comparisons here, you can see that really there's only one fit. But look at the white ibis there in the center. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. There's obvious white ibis there, white birds with the kind of dipped in ink black tips, but then there's birds that are like mostly dark with white bellies and wing linings, and those are juveniles, and
those are this year's chicks.
Yeah, and those birds really confuse a lot of people. They're kind of the horned larks of the swamp.
It's interesting, because they, a lot of young birds look.
Sorry, I'm
close
making
enough to
myself
the-
crack up over here.
Oh, I gotcha. I hear you. I hear the joke. I lost my train of thought. We usually think of young birds hanging out with their parents a lot of times, and also with wading birds like herons and egrets and stuff. They frequently do form mixed flocks a lot of times on mudflats and lagoons and places where you feed. So you do see multiple species. So it's reasonable to think that if you see a bird that looks as different as a juvenile white ibis looks from an adult white ibis, that you might be looking at a different species of ibis, of which we do have 2 more species of ibis here in the ABA area that are both dark. So it's reasonable to think that maybe you've got glossy or white faced. But no, these young white ibises are brown all over, but they do have the white bellies and the white under the wing.
Yeah.
And they start molting that. They don't hold that plumage very often at all. And
Very long,
very long. Yeah. And so, by this point in the late summer, they're starting to molt into the all white plumage that we associate with white ibis. And you get a lot of these sort of piebald looking birds, that have these mix of dark feathers in the wings that they have not lost and replaced yet. It's quite similar to little blue heron, which does the same thing. Young little blue herons are white, adult little blue herons are blue, and there is this period of 6 to 8 weeks in the late summer where you start seeing these piebald blue herons, where you get the young birds that have dark feathers coming in sort of randomly all over the body, especially in the wings, and they confuse people because they don't look like anything in the field guides, because they don't always. Sometimes there's a little picture of a piebald little blue heron. It's the same with the white ibis. These are young birds molting into the white plumage of the adults, and they're not quite there yet.
Exactly, and as we can see with the great egret there, herons and egrets tend to fly with their necks tucked in. So it's not that neck stretched out look that we see with ibises, cranes. Now pelicans are kind of different in the sense that they do fly with their heads tucked in, but their bills are so long that if you see them way up in the sky, it looks like their necks are sticking out. Yeah, but they're not.
It's a weird shaped bird.
And one other thing about pelicans is that it's really uncommon to see one alone flying. It's like usually you see them in anywhere from small groups to very large flocks, and they have, they tend to fly like a squadron of airplanes, cranes, same thing, unless birds moving from one pond to another. If they're migrating, you're gonna see them with other cranes moving around. So the birds in question there are white ibis that are nearing adult plumage. They're mostly white with some black in the secondaries.
Of which we have many of here in North Carolina
tis
this
wader
time of
season.
year. And no white pelicans yet. They usually don't arrive till later in the winter. We do have a few of them that hang out on the coast in the winter, but
we've got white pelicans all over the place in the Great Lakes now. I mean, it's
the winter populations have been increasing down here too. Probably your birds coming down here.
That is one of the craziest stories. Boy, we could spend a whole half hour talking about white pelicans in the Great Lakes, and the Mississippi River. But it's it's just amazing how that population has exploded in the last 10, 15 years.
Carl Sosin notes white pelicans look like small airplanes flying around. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're big. I mean, it's a big bird. White pelican and trumpeter swan, for that matter, are two of our largest flying birds in North America. Heaviest.
One
flying
other
birds in North America.
one other thing about white pelicans, if they get up and soar, which they do a lot.
Oh yeah, they make like a ball. It's
soar,
really kind of cool.
Yeah, they get into this big cluster and they fly up very, very high. I watched a big flock once through a scope, and they went up so high, I'm guessing probably 10,000 feet. And then when they reach whatever altitude they want, they just set their wings and power glide, and they could glide for
one right after another. Bing,
a
bing.
couple 100 miles and just string off and just go. But when they do that, if it's like blue sky, sunny, which is usually when birds like that kettle up and soar, they're catching thermals. When the pelicans turn, they disappear. So it's like you're watching these birds. I got these white birds with black in the wings, and then they turn and they just disappear. Yeah. And then whoop, they show up again. It's pretty wild to see that happen. All right, now we're going to go to Southeast Texas.
It's a hard one.
It is. I think this was Sugar Land or Houston. And another note that this one comes to us from the What's This Bird group on ABA Community. ABA Community being our own social media experience and member directory for the ABA. So if you're an ABA member, go to aba.org/community. There's groups and forums and all kinds of things happening there. Kind of a Facebook-like-ish experience, a little different, but if you've used Facebook or any social media, you'll know your way around there pretty easy. This one comes from Southeast Texas, and this is not easy. And the quality of photos doesn't help that much either.
Doesn't help. Slender little bird.
Yep.
Relatively short wings, broad wings, real skinny bill.
Yep.
Long tail, and I love that
Longish,
picture of the inset up in the upper left that shows the tail kind of banked. That definitely helps us identify it. It doesn't look like a sparrow to me. The body is too long, the tail is too short, the bill is wrong. Doesn't look like grosbeak. Bill is too small. What other ones do we consider? Horned lark.
The bill's too small for horned lark.
Too small for horned lark. Yeah.
That large
Kinglet,
amount of white
shape is not correct for a kinglet, which is sort of a very much rounder bird with a shorter tail. Definitely looks like a warbler to me, just like off the bat.
The white in the tail kind of tips it as a warbler. That kind of kind of forked-ish notched tail. We got some streaking on the flank and some kind of white around the eye, and you
can see white around the eye.
That all says warbler to me.
And so my first inclination, I'll tell you right off the bat, when I first saw this photo pop up, it was a yellow-rumped warbler. And then, because I was chatting with it about it with Greg, and I was looking at the main picture, I'm like, looks kind of like a yellow-rumped warbler. And you look at the lower left photo there, and you can clearly see the rump, and there is no yellow rump there. Yellow-rumped warbler, small, streaky, a lot of white in the tail, white around the eye. All those boxes check except for the one for which the bird is named. Which is an important one.
It doesn't have a yellow rump, which rules out a couple of things, including magnolia warbler. It doesn't have it doesn't really look like it has wing bars, but it looks like it's got something going on up there. Yellow rumped warbler would usually show some pretty bold wing bars. The flanking on the streak, but nowhere else. And the kind of whitish
streak on the
tail
flanking,
coverts. Kind of steer us into one direction. Let's take a look at what we got here. One of the things I love about Sibley's Guide to Birds is that he illustrates passerines in flight and does it really well in all plumages. And so, we look at this bird here, the three on the left. I think we got a pretty good match for Prairie Warbler. I feel pretty confident calling that a Prairie Warbler. It's got the white around the eye. It's got
Yeah.
the streaks on the flanks. It's got the right amount of white in the tail. If it were a Maggie, you'd see that very bold and distinct
You'd see the tail
tail pattern.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, and if it were a palm, it would have that same tail pattern. I would think of a palm. So, palm is funny because it's actually one of the warblers that I've seen in flight the most because
Yeah.
it spends a lot of time on the ground and you flush them up all the time. They do have kind of a long tail.
Yeah.
The body shape of this bird does not feel like a palm to me.
I agree.
And some folks have suggested Cape May as well. That's a good guess too. I think the bill looks a little big for Cape May, which is another one of those extremely small billed birds.
Yeah,
And also,
and-
Cape May warbler is it gets pretty scarce towards Texas. It's a Caribbean wintering bird, so they're
Yeah,
much
but
more
this is
common.
in
sort of
this is in
east of
August.
Mississippi.
This is in August in South Texas. So palm warbler, Cape May, not unheard of, but not at all. like
Right,
that's a
they'd be
go-to.
late. They'd be late.
And
I
same
get what
thing
you're
with,
saying. Yeah.
Same thing with palm warbler. But Cape May has pretty bold wing bars. And I would expect
And a lot
little
of streaking, more streaking too.
more streaking on the chest
Yeah.
in that kind of a plumage.
Yeah.
And but that kind of whitish around the face and the streaking on the flank, and then the one thing that we can see in the middle photo of it there is that it's kind of yellowish on the breast and white on the lower belly under tail coverts. And palm warbler would be the opposite. It would show yellowish or greenish on the
Be
undertail
more
coverts,
yellowish on the undertail.
and go to gray and white as you went up the front of the bird. And I believe that Cape May would show a brighter rump. Than
They have a pretty bright rump. Yeah, like a lemony
than this.
green. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I feel good. I feel good calling this a prairie warbler.
I don't disagree. Like, I don't have any reason to disagree with you on that. I think that's probably what it is. Timing says a lot too. It's good you mentioned that it was August. Prairie warbler is a relatively early migrant. I have seen them in August down here in places they don't breed. So they and I think of Cape May as a late migrant for the most part. Late September, October bird, and palm, even more so. So it goes to show, birds are moving right now. A lot of birds are moving. It's worth going out and having a look. And if you see a bird like that and you can get a photo of it, even a photo like this can potentially be identified. This might be a bird that you just let go. if you're
I
out in the
think as
field.
we've proven over the years, unless the photo is truly, truly terrible, which we get plenty of, if you get photos like this, you can get that bird identified with a good degree of certainty. We are pretty much out of time.
We have
but
questions.
got
We have
started-
questions, Greg. We have questions.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, we have two good ones, actually.
We started a little bit late, so we're going to go a little bit late.
That was my fault.
Paul Etheridge asks, have we ever heard of boat-tailed grackles predation on starlings? I see them together in the spring in flocks, but was recently told by a grad student that they have witnessed on multiple occasions grackles taking out a starling. I would say, now I'm just talking about grackles in general.
We're just talking about grackles. Grackles?
Yeah, grackles are predators.
We're talking about grackles.
Yes.
Yeah.
One day we were having a picnic, a barbecue in my backyard, and there was a pair of grackles nesting down the block. And what I'm assuming was the male, because the thing was gigantic. I was thinking it might be a great-tailed grackle for a moment. And it just came by the yard and plucked a juvenile house sparrow out of the sky and then sat there and in the neighbor's yard and pulled it to pieces. So yes, I have witnessed that firsthand. Not necessarily starlings, but they'll go after anything they can overpower.
Yeah, I've never seen that, what is described in that observation, but it would not surprise me to hear that it happened either. For the same reason, especially bow-tailed grackles. Like, they're big. That's a big bird. It's almost crow-sized.
Yeah. So we got Steve asking, I guess talking to you, Nate, says, hoping to catch you. I live in Transylvania County, North Carolina, and I was doing some reading on the NCWF recent draft report, specifically the section containing information on black-capped chickadee. After doing some reading, I have
This
a
is
question.
niche.
Is Western North Carolina, he lives in Pisgah Forest,
Mhm.
considered to be in the overlap zone between black-capped and Carolina chickadee? The project feeder map seems to suggest that.
So, yes and no. So the thing about the chickadees in Western North Carolina, this is a really interesting question that I could talk about at length. That no one else is probably very interested in because so we have this population of black-capped chickadees, this isolated population of black-capped chickadees in the southern Appalachians, particularly in the Smoky Mountains. Historically, they were in the Black Mountains as well, but they once that whole area got logged over in the 20s, they pretty much disappeared. Typically, above 5,000 feet is where you're going to find black-capped chickadees. Below 5,000 feet, it's generally all Carolina chickadees. Now, the question of like overlap zone versus hybrid zone versus all that stuff is pretty much like it's unstudied. And it's hard for birders to get a handle on it because those two chickadees will mimic each other's calls and songs to some extent. And so the way that I approach it when I'm looking for black-capped chickadees is that there are only a few places above 5,000 feet in Western North Carolina where I can be confident that the birds there are black-capped chickadees. Great Smoky Mountain National Park, up around Klingman's Dome. There are a few spots in Transylvania County along the Blue Ridge Parkway that are up there that have been historically good spots for black-capped chickadees. But everywhere else, I generally think that it's Carolina chickadees all over the place. I don't know what the trend in the population is for this little population of black-capped chickadees. I don't know whether they're getting squeezed out. I don't know whether climate change is affecting them as they move up slope. But generally, the birds above 5,000 feet, if they're singing a black cap song, if they've got the white in the wings, I feel pretty confident calling them black cap chickadees. But everywhere else is a crapshoot for the most part. It's an interesting question. I wish someone was out there studying it. I know there's been a lot of work on hybrid zones of black cap chickadee and Carolina chickadee and like Pennsylvania and how they're moving northward in that area. It's fascinating to me, the chickadee situation there, but it's weird. Yeah, the definitive study on it was done in like 1925 by James Tanner, the Ivory-billed James Tanner, same guy. He did chickadees, and so much has changed since then. But the places that typically have the black-capped chickadees are the places that have yellow aspen groves and were places that were not overlogged in the 1920s. So places like Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which avoided most of the logging there. It's
So
interesting stuff. It's
we got
interesting stuff.
time for one last question. Brian Small asks, "Can you explain why we never see juvenile dunlin in California during migration?" I
This
can't
feels like a
answer
setup
that.
for a joke.
I cannot. I cannot answer that question specific to California, but I can answer why we pretty much never see juvenile dunlin anywhere. I've been birding over 50 years. I've seen precisely one juvenile
Wow,
dunlin.
really?
Yeah, and that's because I've never been to where they breed, and why when the young birds. So the young birds, which are brown and streaky and look a heck of a lot like Western sandpipers,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have. They're not the gray of a winter dunlin, and they're not the black belly and red back of a breeding plumage dunlin.
Mm-hmm.
They're just kind of warm brown, streaky, a little rufusy all over with black legs, obviously, and they molt out of that plumage before they leave the where they were born. It's really uncommon
It's unusual
to
for a
see
shorebird.
a dunlin in that plumage outside of the area where it was born, where it was hatched. Now, having said that, there are places in the Northeast, in particular, where they kind of come down and you'll get some. But to see a juvenile dunlin anywhere in like southern Canada or the lower 48 is unusual.
Why is that? Why do
I
they?
don't
'Cause
know.
I think of Dunlin as being later migrants than a lot of the other shorebirds, and I wonder if they
Yeah,
just linger up there long enough to start, molting out of that plumage before they
yeah,
start moving south.
and that may be. And the one
Hmm.
that I did see was in August. is either late August or early September.
Yeah.
And I posted it to way back in the day to the Illinois Birders Forum as
I sent Polaroids to
as a
their
conundrum.
bird committee.
Yeah, and boy, it took a while to figure that one out.
Yeah, I'll bet.
That's when I was shooting slide. I was shooting slide film.
I was going to say, I sent slides to the committee and they put them on a projector.
That's almost what happened.
Yeah, I usually don't start looking for Dunlin or thinking about Dunlin until like mid-October down here.
Yeah.
So it's a very late migrant. Yeah, at least in the east.
Alrighty, well, folks, thank you for hanging with us.
You've wasted another hour
again.
Plus.
We did
talking about birds.
And if you enjoy what we're doing here, and you enjoy the ABA, the American Birding Podcast, and everything else we do, please consider going to aba.org/join. And it's right up there.
Over there.
And we would love to have you join the club.
The door.
And so that's it for us, folks. We'll see you in a couple of weeks with some more tricky bird IDs and bird banter and all of it. So,
yep.
Later, Nate.
See you around, folks. Adios. Bye.